Welcome to Built for This, the podcast where purpose meets performance. Hosted by business strategist and human behavior specialist Carly Pepin, this show dives into the real stories behind high-growth businesses. Let's bring life to your vision.
So welcome back to Built for This. I am very much looking forward to today. We have an exciting guest on. So we have John Petrocelli. John is a pioneer of the live stream industry. John is a lifelong learner, entrepreneur, and founder CEO of leading live stream studio Bulldog DM. He has built a career on connecting consumers to the world's best live content, enabling the most watched live streams of all time. John's work has produced over 1 billion audience engagements across Fortune 500 clients. His leadership at startups led to acquisitions by AEG, Google, and Akami. In 2012, he founded Bulldog DM, a key partner for top brands seeking John's live stream expertise. Bulldog DM clients include Apple, AT&T, YouTube, Amex, Coca-Cola, Hyundai, Procter & Gamble, Netflix, Samsung, Snickers, and Qualcomm. Bulldog DM projects have won Clio, Shorty, Web, Cannes, Lion, EPCA, One Show, and BizBash awards. John has been a speaker at CES, NAB, SXSW, and Harvard Business School. Welcome, John.
Thank you, Carly. I appreciate it. Great to be here.
Yeah, so I'm really excited about this. You know, when we had a chance to connect earlier, what you've done is quite inspiring within this industry, and sounds like you've made a really great impact. But it's also really interesting, kind of how it all came to be. So before Bulldog Media existed, you were already solving problems for the industry. It's like almost without even realizing it was a problem yet. So tell us a little bit more about that.
It's definitely been an interesting journey for me, and it was shaped by kind of these opportunities that arose. I guess I was in the right place at the right time. But years ago, I was working in the early days of the streaming world, and back then there were these things called the format wars, and it was Microsoft Windows Media versus Apple QuickTime versus Real Player. And this is, again, the early days of certainly video and audio on the internet. And my role was really acting as a kind of neutral delivery company, almost like Switzerland, serving up all those formats as people began to consume media. And one of those platforms, Apple, came to me and said, "Hey, we like what you're doing with QuickTime. We were approached by a music artist who wants to do this themselves. Would you be interested in helping?" I said, "Sure." Who is that? And they told me that it was Prince, and I was still am a very big fan. And back then, I think it was hard in today it probably still is, to explain things like anti-piracy and digital rights management and authentication. So to shorten that conversation, I took a copy of Purple Rain from a file sharing network back then. This is, close to 20 years ago. How people consume media. And I had the file encrypted and sent it back over to his team. And when you went to open it, it says you have to be authorized, or you have to pay, or you have to be a member of his fan club to play this asset, meaning you just can't take it and do it and monetize it or use it the way you want to. And I got this email back in the middle of the night that said, Prince says, in quotes, "This is exactly what I want to do," when I was spelled EYE, and it was the number 2, which is, he communicated in writing that way. And we were quickly off to a relationship. I helped him build his first direct-to-consumer music store that he filled with audio, video, records he hadn't released, all kinds of really fascinating content. And then follow that up with a statement that he was going to go on this massive tour and play all of his hits. And if you wanted the best seats, you had to come to his online music club and buy the best seats there. So there was this massive influx of more people signing up, and we had to build a comparative, ticketing system to meet that demand. The reason I bring all this up is I was able to go and I was invited to see him perform and tune up at some gigs leading to this experience, and it was mind blowing. And I realized this is the future, is rather than me calling my friends and telling them what I'm witnessing, or the next day, is we had this shared experience. And I had taken over a live streaming company that was then quickly purchased by AEG, whom everybody probably knows as the number two promoter in the world behind Live Nation. And they also have a massive presence in sports. They own a third of the Lakers, they own the Kings in the NHL, the Galaxy and MLS, and arenas around the world, and also things like Coachella. And it was really that Prince live experience, being inside of a live company. And then when that acquisition started, I had previously gone to YouTube and evangelized live video to them as a means to bring a collective audience to YouTube. And then post event, they could all share all the related content that they were, related to that experience. And we began to do things like, the live streaming for the Grammys, Oscars, Masters, TED Conference. That YouTube led to a pilot project with Alicia Keys at an AEG venue in New York for the first live stream in YouTube history, brought to the viewer by American Express. And so it was a culmination for me. That journey was Prince, AEG, and then YouTube stepping into live. And they didn't provide live services at the time. So we delivered all the video for Coachella, Bonnaroo, Rock in Rio, Lollapalooza, um, anything on YouTube, movie premieres, product launches. And that was my indoctrination into this space. And then the world kind of shifted towards more smartphones and devices entering the market that could play video. And then there was this kind of push towards, the experience economy. And I just really kind of backed into it or fell into it, and was able to kind of see the writing on the wall based on some of these experiences.
Amazing. That's really, really cool. And even just sharing with listeners now, like exactly what you do today, just in case for those people who don't understand your particular industry around the live streaming video.
Sure. So my company, Bulldog DM, or Bulldog Digital Media, we are the world's most experienced live stream studio. And that means we provide all of the turnkey services that a client would need to really execute a live stream or a live content strategy. And a customer for us could be a brand like a Qualcomm or an AT&T or a Hyundai or a big ad agency, or it could be one of the platforms. They're clients of ours as well. Also, it could be a creator, a music artist, a music promoter, or at the end of the day, it could be a group or a subset of all those entities together. And we'll provide, if needed, all the live multi-camera video capture, and then taking that video and then rendering it for internet delivery. So things like moving the video, digitizing it, or what's called live encoding. And then 3, we specialize in distribution. So if the customer says, hey, if I'm YouTube, I want this to go on Doja Cat's YouTube channel because we're kicking off her new record. Or if I'm TikTok and I'm doing a TikTok experience, it's there. In some cases, AT&T might say to us, I need you to be on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and TikTok simultaneously. So the third tier of what we have our heads around is how do we then distribute and deliver this video to a place where people could watch it in real time and have that kind of collaborative participatory experience ideally with their friends.
Awesome. And so as you're saying that too, like it occurred to me, I know you have a lean team, which we'll talk about, but the dynamic of even the live streaming to all these different platforms, right? So I know that you have a lot of contractors and we'll get into why, but how do you pick like which people to have full time? Like, is someone full time one of the individuals who's constantly doing tech, or is that a contractor? And what makes you decide which employees get to be full time versus having a contractor?
Yeah, and that's a great question. It's also kind of one of the dynamics of being in the event, business. So the core members of our team kind of oversee either, business, tech, or video production, or maybe it's, a different hat, a different day. And the reason we will go with freelancers is largely production based. If someone says, hey, I have this really important project in Miami, we need it executed over 3 days. Like we did, we did the NFL Pro Bowl variety show in Orlando a couple of years back. And we had most of our clients, they want to do this with a cadence and some frequency. So if we're able to not load up a plane of everybody in LA and fly them to Miami, that's a better way to help our clients become successful, and also expands our footprint. So we're sourcing gear and crew and equipment in some of those local areas, but we're always overseeing everything and running it through our department heads and our executive team members. But that's typically, or if we're doing a music festival, That's going to be a crew, multi-day, multi-stage, 47 to 60, people. So we'll bring those teams in. And that's how that whole world, the live event world really operates, is almost like a fire drill. When the alarm is pulled, we all have to be ready and go and execute. And obviously, some experiences we know or we're planning well in advance. We typically are involved in something like the BET Awards for BET almost every year. We know that's going to be the second week or second Saturday or Sunday or Monday in June. So we really base our business around that. But it's an
Mm.
interesting time right now. Live is exploding for, two or three or four really interesting reasons. So it's a good skill set to have in this kind of changing, evolving market, particularly in tech.
Yeah. So, like, when you're talking about these teams that you bring on board and your team in-house, are you mainly having like a team of managers in-house where they manage and oversee maybe each department, or do you even contract maybe a manager or someone to oversee that as well?
Usually we're at
Mhm.
the top of the food chain, and it also really is driven largely by scope, right? If it depends on what our clients want and how they want it done.
Mhm.
And because we've, I guess, been at this the longest and have a pretty high profile of customers, bigger customers like to work through one single entity almost anyway in anything that they do. And certain cases where we also might be working under a giant ad agency that is the agency of record for a Coca-Cola or an AT&T, and our role is to deliver and manage all the video. And the video
Mhm.
could be interviews, it could be the live show, could be a rival red carpet, drone coverage. So we have to be prepared to, again, support the scope and the mandate. And a lot of this is marketing driven as well, or it's a lot of our work is around amplifying what's an experiential activation. So someone will go and they'll do something, they'll launch a product in a
Mhm.
certain location, and they want to have not just the eyeballs that are physically there, but extend that out to their presence on, Instagram or YouTube or Facebook. So big part of our world is again that amplification, which is now
Mhm.
almost critical for anybody who's in the experiential world.
Okay. I'm curious as well, like even when you're working with these companies, I have the background in still photography productions. We did advertising, fashion, celebrity. It was super fun. But it was interesting to see sometimes it was actually kind of rare. It was few clients that wanted to be incredibly hands-on, where there was almost a dynamic that we got also creative direction and doing production and making sure everything went smoothly. And I would be like the point person to work with everyone. So when you look at the live video industry, are they also relying on you for that as well? Or do you have like multiple people that you guys are connecting with in the company with this one point person on your end?
I would say almost any business today, any personality, any influencer as well, has some sort of a video capability because the preponderance of a phone today, the higher end devices have
Yeah.
4K on the back, and you can do a lot of great things with your personal devices, and you can also re-edit it and use software and post production. Where that dynamic changes is in live, particularly live multi-camera work. And that is a
Mhm.
very niche business, very few experts in the space. And most of our customers will say, we don't want to touch that. We want to bring in somebody who knows how to do that. There's also, it's live. It has to happen at a certain time, and the artist has to hit the stage of its music, or the CEO, she's going to have to launch the product at a particular time, given they have audiences in international territories as well. So typically, their thinking is we'll handle the event or we'll handle the creative. We need you to execute anything and everything around that live
Hmm.
strategy. And a lot of this too is pre-planning and testing. We need to know the connectivity in the room that allows us to pull and move video, or is it on a shared Wi-Fi, access point? Because now, rather than
Yeah.
just us, it's going to be potentially a couple hundred people pulling that video. Do we need to bring supplemental private video or private bandwidth as well? But most of the time, people are like, hey, that's not something that I'm comfortable, dealing with. We do have creative, we do have video, we do have social teams, we have experiential experts in-house. So it also becomes very harmonious, workflow. So we'll take
Yeah.
the input from the creative team, the marketing team, the event team, even the ad agency, and then build the live stream strategy based around all of those touch points and all of those contributors to the overall experience. But for the most part, we're given our task and we put our heads down and we execute it.
So it sounds like your office almost has a team of leaders who have this expertise in each area. Is that correct? If I'm gauging that accurately.
Yeah, expertise in live multi-camera video production. I would say there's also a siloed expertise in engineering and
Mm.
technical streaming, technical management. Luckily, we're fortunate to have people that have a foot in both of those worlds, and that's really kind of
Yeah.
a big differentiator for us. Also, coming out of the promoter world and understanding what happens in a conference center or a recording studio or even a club,
Hmm.
a nightclub, a venue, or all the way up to a stadium or a 7 or 8 stage festival. We have a keen understanding of what happens in that world, and there are ticket buyers, there are artists there are people that are performing on stage or delivering keynotes or
Hmm.
fireside chats, and we want to do our best to make it the next best thing to physically being there, because it could be a brand play, it could be
Hmm.
future ticket sales that a promoter wants to offer, maybe it's an artist kicking off a leg of a tour. Also, it's mission critical if they're launching a new fashion item that has to look perfect, given you're going to be taking pre-orders. We've even seen it in
Yep.
the automotive industry doing automotive reveals. A lot is at stake. This has to be executed perfectly, and a lot of that science goes into proper, lighting and audio and camera positioning, et cetera, so on and so forth. And also understanding the nuances of watching this on a connected device, a mobile handset, or are people casting to their TVs in their homes as well. And we shoot and execute based on those dynamics as well. We have to keep um, those variables in mind as we're going about a particular project.
Okay, it's really cool. I'm curious as well the intercommunication dynamic, because just based on what you're sharing, it sounds like there's a significant quantity of communication that goes around within the company. Is that something that you guys have structured out? Is it more free flowing? Is it a little bit of a balance of both?
I'd say it's a balance of both. Again, it's
Mhm.
also related to our customers, and a company like AT&T, for example, has a really important partnership with the NBA. So they own, or they are big providers of sponsorship dollars around the NBA All-Star
Mhm.
and WNBA All-Star Fan Fest. And for several years, we would also power live stream and produce the pregame concert for both of these. And so it's going to happen in the city where obviously where the game is. So we have to be prepared. Hey, we're operating in Utah. We're in Salt Lake this year for the game, and then next year it's going to be in Cleveland, or it could be in Chicago, and it could be a country performer, it could be hip hop, it could be pop. We have to be cognizant of the headliner and the support
Mhm.
act as well. And we also spend a lot of time with them in their NCAA sponsorship. So they have the same situation at the Final Four. There's this kind of cool music festival, and same thing with the college football playoffs. These bands come out, and it's a whole series of things that happen in that regard. So communication is largely driven by there'll be a certain set kickoff call a month, for maybe 6 weeks out. We'll have weekly updates. We'll also show day. Everyone is on typically a WhatsApp live chat, given we can still communicate no matter what the noise or the internet situation is. And we're also on comms at the shows as well. So everyone's on some sort of back channel headset radio system to understand when is there a delay in starting the show? Is there something we need to be cognizant of, weather wise? So communication is critical. Obviously, we do this for a living and we understand it, but our clients don't. And there's a lot of anxiety, and, they want to be perfectly aware of what's happening. And we mitigate most of the challenges to these experiences by having completely redundant workflows. So from moving video from the venue to the cloud, or from the venue to our NOC, there's a primary path and there's a backup path. And even when we're encoding, there's a primary encoding appliance and there's a backup encoding appliance. So even if there was an issue with, and these are state of the art appliances built by companies like Amazon and Google, there's always a fill. So the show stays on the air no matter what. They can focus on their creative and their objectives and their marketing plans. And typically, if it's a Budweiser brand and they have partnered with Post Malone, they can stay collaborative with their talent and not worry about, oh, is that encoder plugged in? Do we have the proper bandwidth here on the ground? And
Mhm.
but communication is, yes, certainly a critical part to anything that's live, without question.
Hey everyone, it's Carly. If you're really resonating with what we're talking about and want to get clear on what truly drives you, what your core values are, head on over to my website. In the tools and tips section, there is a free values assessment. And this is a quick exercise that's going to help you to uncover what actually matters most with you so you can lead and live with more clarity, fulfillment, and momentum. Yeah. And with the individuals that you're hiring as the contractors too. So is that in charge of each particular division? So like if I'm in charge of the production aspect, I'm going to be the person who hires. If I'm in charge of lighting, I'm going to be the person who hires. If I'm in charge of sound, I'm the person who hires the sound. Or is it something like you guys have a actual producer and you're like, we're going to use this person, this person, this person? Like, how does that work on even the back end when you guys are looking for contractors?
So we'll have a project manager, typically an
Mhm.
executive from the company who's the quarterback of the project, and then we'll get down to match and marry based on the application. So 2 years ago, we were doing an electronic music series for Amazon Music at the Brooklyn Mirage, which is an
Mhm.
independent club in New York and Brooklyn. And the mandate from Amazon was, hey, we want to curate this series. We want to speak. We have great viewership with electronic artists on all platforms that we service or surfaces that Amazon reaches. And we want to build this great kind of series. So we'll know who in our ecosystem are really experts at electronic music. And that's a different experience than, call it pop music, right? You've got
Mhm.
typically an artist on stage, you got dancers, and these artists lean into all kinds of amazing visuals with lights and lasers and typically pyro. And we want to be cognizant of we build the team based around, could be the location, it could be the frequency of the show, the duration of the show, the talent, the artist. What is the objective of the customer? So we'll bring in our team that lives a lot in the electronic, music world. Conversely, we could be working for Qualcomm to deliver their Snapdragon Summit, a series of keynotes, product launches, fireside chats, the CEO of Qualcomm interviewing the CEO of Adobe. Different, mandate there. So we'll bring in our group of people who are good at enterprise, work and understanding how that dynamic is at play. So
Mhm.
it's always, I wish it was a template approach to everything, but nothing is the same. Projects always differ in some measure from one project to another, but that's what makes us, good at what we do. We appreciate those challenges and we build things that are highly customized. And, we want to we're very good at servicing those needs, particularly again, a lot riding on a Samsung experience or an MX experience where they're bringing a product to market, or we've done a couple of those with a brand like Coca-Cola. So a lot of support and a lot of customization in what we do.
And this is interesting too, because it's like as you're talking about it, it sounds like you've built like, this almost global ecosystem, right? So you have the right people for the right jobs, and you've kind of got all this measured. When you were first building this ecosystem, when you look at these individuals, what are some of the non-negotiables for hiring someone, even as almost this permanent fixture on the outside of your team, right? Because even though you guys don't, I mean, you have a lean team. How many people do you have again?
The cores is four.
Yeah, it's a super
Yeah.
lean team, but simultaneously, you've technically done a significant quantity of hiring because every
Right.
person has to be interviewed, and all of these people are repeats that you're going back to. So, what does that look like when you were building that to ensure you guys are bringing the right people on for these big jobs? You're right. If this gets messed up, it's not a small deal.
That's a great point. For us, it's really two characteristics. One is you've got to have a skill set and a DNA for a live experience. And it's not, 28 takes of a particular show. It's happening real time, authentically in the moment. And, a lot of people measure the live world really by sports, because sports was really the first and kind of the beachhead of this market. And if anybody watches sports today, it's beautifully executed. The cameras are almost feel like they're
Yeah.
on the field. So we have to have in our ecosystem people that understand timeliness, accuracy, communication, meeting deadlines, perfect, proper testing, but also understanding that there's the probability that things will deviate from the plan or the script, right? And if we're doing something like music, artists might come on. We've actually have artists have come on earlier, a couple of minutes ahead of time.
Mhm.
Some have come on later, but we're going live on, call it YouTube at 8 o'clock. We have to have things like slates and say, "Hey, stand by," or maybe we'll start a countdown timer as well. So there are tools we can use in the interactive world that can help support some of those dynamics. I think the other thing with team members too is culture, right? I'm a very big believer in a positive, upbeat, optimistic team and crew, and that needs to translate because we're not, again, our clients are Apple, Netflix, Jeep, Nissan, Hyundai. These are some of the most recognized brands on the face of the earth. They need to have a level of confidence and a level of comfort as well. If we're out of sorts at the experience, that's not going to sit well with them. It's going to cause them to, have more anxiety than, because again, they're dealing with their show, their experience, their talent, their partners, their executives, their audiences as well. And they don't, they want just as smooth as experience as they can garner. So again, so I would say for us, it's really the live, DNA, and then the culture, which is really how our teams operate.
That's awesome. Even the culture dynamic too is like, what are some of the core culture components that you guys are interviewing for, looking for when you're building this ecosystem?
I think the big thing is the ability to adapt, and again, understanding that something may not go as planned. And we were doing one of those shows in Brooklyn, and I think this was an election year, so there was some candidate that was exiting or flying out of JFK or LaGuardia, and the rule is no drones that are not sanctioned by the government can be flying anywhere. So we had to ground our drone to be compliant, and that's nothing that anyone can do. That's not the fault of the artist or the brand or the venue or the people watching at home, but we have to change our production schedule, based on that. And maybe we'll go and lean more into a jib camera or a camera that's, on the stage as well. So having that flexibility, and fortunately for people that have been in the live world in any capacity, they understand. I mean, there are music festivals around the country that'll get a torrential rain and everyone has got to clear. I was at Lollapalooza one year. We were all issued notifications on our mobile handsets to take shelter for 2 hours till the rain passed through Chicago and we could return, to the festival. So that's just the nature of the beast, is really understanding that you got to be proactive in some ways and reactive in others, and just understand that things might not change. But you mitigate a lot of that by proper planning, redundant systems,
Mhm.
and test, and rehearse, rehearse, rehearse.
That's awesome. And so when you're even doing the testing and rehearsing, because you can't do it like you're not doing it live, obviously. Are you doing it when you guys like a couple days before one of these shows? Are you trying to do it beforehand and almost mimic the situation? Like, what does that look like? Because I imagine you just, if it's a Hollywood Bowl, like you can't just go to Hollywood Bowl. Like there might be something else going on.
Yeah, well, we test technically. So if someone says, "Hey, we want to be on three channels on one on
Mhm.
TikTok, one on YouTube, one on Instagram," we'll test those accounts. Usually, the accounts they'll give us what are called channel access. So we don't take ownership of a personality's account. We're just a channel manager who can turn it on and test privately, or we'll set up private accounts to make sure that the video goes from the venue to its intended point. A lot of times there's live rehearsals like the day before, or there's sound checks in that world. That's when we can do some interesting testing as well and make sure we've got the proper camera positions. But this is a very fluid dialogue. Typically, a lot of the world, since the pandemic, there's a couple of things that have happened. One, from consumer perspective, it's almost been this global growth and understanding of how to consume live video, right? No matter who you were, if you were a grandparent, you were
Hmm.
Zooming with your family in the pandemic. If you were a child, you were doing some sort of online learning. A lot of us in the corporate world were attending conferences through Zoom or whatever platform. And everybody seemed to be streaming music artists because everybody was sequestered in their homes, and you'd see an artist jamming in their bedroom or their home studio. So the market became very elevated. And the other thing is a lot of the venues that were, when we consulted with and advised NEVA in the pandemic, which is the National Independent Venue Association, of the
Hmm.
3,000 venues that a lot of the artists today played on those stages to become who they are in terms of A-list talent. And a lot of the venues had the benefit of now being able to add supplemental bandwidth or wiring or cameras or extra mics for streaming and broadcasting. So the market's become a lot more elevated, which allows us to do that specialize in different things. Maybe it's a choose your view camera experience, or maybe we're going to do with AT&T. We've helped them with 5G workflows for streaming. So
Hmm.
a lot of it changes have come. I always remind myself this is still, I've been in it for a while, but it's still for a lot of people, brand new industry that went through a massive explosion in the
Hmm.
pandemic and is now having almost a second wave for a couple of other reasons as well.
Okay. Yeah. And so are you finding even now, present day, that more companies are interested into doing like this live streaming dynamic than they were before? So it's
Yeah, I
moving
think
just away from events and more towards actual companies.
it's been an interesting wave. I think the pandemic created hundreds of companies that specialize in quote live streaming, and a lot of them have washed out because you know, a pandemic-based business is, it's debatable that that's really going to be substantial.
Hmm.
But the other thing is now shows are back. People you have to streaming from a packed room or a venue club or an arena is very different from shooting something and then playing it as a live stream in the pandemic when there's no audience. And what's happening today, you have two dynamics. One is Netflix is now they've tested, they've figured out that the more live content that we offer, the more people come to our platform, the more advertising dollars we pick up. We may also convert viewers who are watching the Jake Logan Paul fight and they liked what we advertised a show during that experience and they've somehow subscribed. And I think that's now being replicated. Or you got competition, Apple is very active in the live space, particularly with music. Amazon has the Thursday night NFL games, which are bookended by, concerts during the season. Hulu just did a run of, I think, 3 years of Austin City Limits and Lollapalooza. And then Paramount, or the minute Skydance acquired Paramount, I think in 7 days they bought 7 years worth of rights for the UFC, which is like a $7.1 billion deal. So what's happening in the live world is now these platforms
Hmm.
are all growing and building these live content portfolios, which is great for us. And then in parallel, there's the retail world is now on its what's called the third wave of retail is now moved primarily to, or will move to e-commerce live streaming, or what's called shoppable live
Hmm.
video, which is this 400 to $600 billion estimated business in
Hmm.
China. And it's now becoming a focal point of TikTok Shop, which is about to do 23 billion this year in sales revenue. At the end of the day, it's people are interacting in these live broadcasts. They're be able to ask questions. It reduces the likelihood of a return. It increases conversion rates up to 30%. And so we're seeing our customers now, they still want to live stream, but it's much more valuable to them if they can have some sort of a call to action or a conversion. So we've now become a TikTok Shop certified agency, and we see our business as dual. It's going to be, hey, let's amplify an experience out for a brand partner, and let's also drive these e-commerce shows that are actually moving and selling a particular product. I think there's also going to be some crossing over of those two worlds, and we're already starting to
Hmm.
see that. So very different it's been a movement, a roller coaster, but now I think it's an really, really interesting time for this market, given those two current dynamics with the platforms and with e-commerce live streaming.
I'm curious too, because when we think about like even this dynamic of this new e-commerce sort of phase, right? Like I remember the home shopping network back in the day.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do remember that. I remember sitting at home the first time with my dad seeing the home shopping network, and they totally landed me on a toy. My dad was awesome. He bought it for me. It's the coolest thing ever. It's amazing. My first online shopping experience. But it was fascinating because it's interesting to see how it's transgressing up to today, like all the things that are changing and how it's growing. When I think about how many products and services that we have to sell and offer, do you think that like more, I guess more products that we wouldn't even think about having online like that are going to start to do more online e-commerce? I know even the cost of retail can be really, really high. As much as I love to go in, like I'm like one out of a few who actually likes to go in stores now. And so it seems like a lot of stores are suffering. Like, how many different products do you think we're actually going to see in the future coming online?
Well, it's a big opportunity for certainly established products, but
Mhm.
also challenger products and direct-to-consumer products who historically couldn't afford like an ad at the Super Bowl. And what we're seeing is almost everybody under a certain age is now gravitated towards this medium. I think that the data we've seen is that 80% of Gen Z consumers are purchasing products through e-commerce live streams. The number's about 58% for millennials. Conversion is to 30%, which is 10x the normal e-commerce of 2 to 3. I think
Mhm.
last year, 8 million hours of live e-commerce based programming lived on TikTok Shop alone. This year, eMarketer predicts that TikTok Shop will exceed 23 billion, which is, and that's just in the US, that's more than the commerce business of Kroger, Best Buy, and Target, right? So it's a pretty massive numbers. And to your point, running a retail business is not cheap. And I've heard advertising thought leaders say that what's going to happen in the next 3 to 5 years is retail will become on Monday through Friday will become studios, and the employees and their influencer creator partners will be helping you discover and entertain you with live content, and then they'll convert back to retail on the weekends. And so those numbers are hard to look away from. If you're developing a product, you're a retailer of any. I think last week, Clorox, Samsung, Microsoft, and Disney all turned on YouTube, TikTok Shop stores. So
Yeah.
now it's predominantly dominated by beauty, fashion, and home goods. But I think that's going to open up to anything, consumer electronics, like how this headset you're offering, does it come in? Can you turn your head and show me how it looks from a side profile? What colors does it? I mean, you can ask these questions right away. And the big takeaway we've seen is it reduces product returns by 40% because you've been able to ask some questions and
Mhm.
actually see the product presented to you by someone that you trust, right? An influencer is critical, a creator is critical. And the idea is now we're finding people that are product experts, and they're very uh, passionate about these products, or this maybe they're in the wellness line, or some. We're working on an opportunity now with the fishing industry to someone who makes fishing lures, which we're getting a whole education on, but aligning with a subject matter expert who is someone that has a modicum of trust and authenticity really helps does these live broadcasts with authenticity and ultimately conversion to a purchase.
Hey everyone, it's Carly. So, if this conversation is really hitting home and you want to get a real snapshot of what's working and what's not in your business, head on over to my website in the tools and tips section and you can have the business performance health check. In just about 15 minutes, you're going to see where the friction is and where your next growth opportunity lies within your company. Yeah, that's wild. It's wild to see kind of where we were, where it's going, and just it's crazy. It's crazy to me, but I'm not the generation who's so involved in it yet. However, I know that we'll all transfer to it as it becomes more and more popular.
You said it. I agree. I think it's going to become far more popular. It's going to transcend almost any age as well.
Yeah, yeah. Well, also at some point we're just not going to have a choice, and then we'll be like, "Oh, this isn't that bad."
Right. Right.
Yeah, that's really cool. Okay, and then even I know that with you, and even when I was talking to you before we started recording, it seems like the innovation dynamic is very important to you, where you're constantly trying to see like what's happening in your market, what's happening with the live video, what's happening in other markets that would impact live video. Like, what would you say you do on the back end to keep up to date with things like that so you guys can keep staying ahead of the curve or along with the curve in your own company?
We try to consume as much about the space as possible. We live in terrific, obviously, time now where you can get things like Google Alerts. I think LinkedIn has become a really compelling resource for thought leaders and access and articles and insights. There's also tremendous research companies that cover the video space, the commerce space. There are, I mean, they just wrapped CES as well. These conferences are going to have panels and presentations and product launches, but also, we can monitor what's happening. Like we can tune in and whether we're powering the stream or it's just out there in the ether. A platform like TikTok has made a massive commitment to live video on that platform. There's a live tab on the platform. You can just go and see things all the time. If you use Instagram, you'll get a push notification that tells you that an account that you follow is now live. So that's always a great way to tune in and see things. But also, those are our clients, right? We do a lot of work with YouTube, with TikTok. If they're going to partner, we just did a show for the music artist Charlie Puth, who was doing a mini residency at the Blue Note Club in LA. I think he was doing like a whole like 4-day weekend, 2 shows, and we live streamed his very first show of that set for TikTok music on Charlie's TikTok account. So
Mhm.
we we have a lot of insights into what they're doing, and they're not shy about making enhancements and announcements and changes as well. But you can never rest and think like I've got this all figured out because something will change, something will develop, and we've got to be completely focused on it. But that's, I think, the exciting part too of the space is that it one day is just not the same as the previous one. Like I said, and a
Yeah.
project is always going to be different from whatever project you've done before. I mean, there are certain things that lessons learned that we can carry forward without question, but uh, dynamic space means you've got to be a dynamic company and you've got to be cognizant of where things could go.
That's really cool. That is fun, by the way. I love that dynamic as well. It's just having those different projects and it's like a different energy and there's different people in each one. It's really cool.
Yeah, I think in the commerce world, you really see that because that's becoming a place where if you're just going to get on a camera and say buy this product, I don't think you're going to have a lot of success.
Yeah.
If you're going to tell some like a cool story and have some kind of interesting narrative, more people are going to come, they're going to watch, they're going to engage. And, hey, by the way, if you're watching today, what we've been talking about is 20% off if you order, right now. So there could be an interesting payoff, but the audience they kind of want to be entertained, right? And they have their credit card. It's an in-app purchase. If you want to, that's why it's a very intriguing. And by the way, I don't think anybody has the perfect playbook and all the answers of how that market works. I think a lot of the West is like, wow, how did it get to 600 billion in China? But in China, everything happens on a single app, right? You don't have an app for
Mhm.
Uber, an app for Instacart at all. Is a kind of unified experience, which I think helps. Over here, we've got a hyper fragmented market, but it's pretty interesting. It's pretty fascinating, and I don't think you can say I've got this figured out because there'll be a development in the next week that'll kind of have to change that way of thinking.
Yeah. I'm curious as well, because even like that dynamic of when people watch videos, right? Where so many people are just on phones now. Do you find that in the US, like it's more transferring to everyone's on their phone? And does that impact how you guys film? Are you still doing horizontal filming, or do you think it's going to switch to more like vertical filming, even live, just because the quantity of phones that are being utilized instead of maybe a computer or TV, iPads.
The phone is certainly a big driver. Ironically, we've also seen a rise of like a connected TV because now everyone's investing in some sort of internet or smart TV. And I think people either want that intimate connection on their phone or they want that
Mhm.
television quality experience. So we've got to be cognizant of that. Luckily, if we're running the reporting and we're tracking all of that, we're telling our clients where people are, how long they're watching, what device they're watching on,
Mhm.
when did they reach peak concurrency in the broadcast. That's kind of an interesting point to have as well. And we can also get down to sometimes city and state and country. Years ago when I first got into this business, we were doing, Lollapalooza only happened in Chicago, and this is
Mm.
Perry Farrell's where he founded it. And the promoter was looking at the streaming data. I'm like, wow, we've got a pretty big following outside of the US. And today, Lollapalooza has versions in Argentina, Chile, Brazil, I think in Sweden, Berlin. There's a Lollapalooza Paris today, and they program it with big headliners, but also artists from those territories. But a lot of that was informed by the data that they got. So the interesting thing of streaming is you're getting pretty compelling data as well as part of this, no matter what you're doing, or are you doing an e-commerce play? Are you doing an enterprise product announcement? Are you amplifying an experience? Are you sponsoring a music event, or are you doing a town hall internally with all of your
Mhm.
various offices? And data certainly, well, this is a data-driven world now, so that helps inform what's going to happen next, or what are they going to grow this program, or we're going to get dollars behind it as well.
Okay. And even like when I look at how you guys are innovating, right? You're creating these ideas, these options of moving forward, you're gathering the data. What makes you decide whether or not to move forward potentially into one of these innovations versus maybe stepping back and saying, this one might not be for us?
We're very big believers on best practices in live streaming. And I would say the gospel there is we want to help our clients transform the viewer into a participant. And if they're asking for our feedback, we're going to, we'll tell them like we've powered hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of live streams. And the big thing for us is you could hire Drake and Lady Gaga, and the audience is going to come. They're certainly going to discover it. The big question is, are they going to stick around? And if it's just TV on the internet, or if it's a webcam or surveillance video, you're not going to connect with your audience. And we've, by elevating the quality of production, and I think this is going to be a big conversation point in the e-commerce world, and by introducing interactivity in the broadcast, like
Mhm.
chat, and also curated chat, so it's not filled with trolling, and make the conversation related to the video, I think really transforms the experience. And then turning on other interactive tools like polling, trivia, adding graphics, calls to action. I'm presupposing that it's lit properly and the audio is above par. That's when a couple things start to happen. So now people are inviting their friends. Hey,
Mhm.
Carly, I'm watching this really cool live broadcast, and we can also comment and answer polling questions. Come, check it out with me. They're also going to watch, longer, and there's a higher probability they're going to come back for, let's say it's AT&T. I think we've done 21 live streams with them. And I think
Mhm.
the audience now realizes, oh, I'm going to get this kind of cool experience in addition to just watching. I can become a participant in that broadcast. So we want to we encourage that as a best practice. And so I think people have to be realistic. And to think I've had people say to me, "Oh, we want to do a one camera production of like a huge A-list artist." I said, "I don't think the audience is going to like that. I don't think the talent is going to like that, and you probably don't want to do that." And here are a number of reasons why. A lot of times it's just, hey. Our clients will go to our website and be like, "Oh, you're doing this work for these. Tell me what they do. How do they approach a particular project?" And I know that not everybody's going to have the budget of the big A-list brands in the world, and we can figure that out. But there's got to be a baseline level of why am I doing this? What is my goal? What is the KPIs or what do I want to take out from this? But
Mhm.
I think the real strategy, and when we talk best practice, is add some level of engagement to what you're doing, and I think that's going to be a much better experience overall.
Yeah, that's wild. And then even like as you think about the company moving forward into the future, like what are you guys planning or envisioning for Bulldog Digital Media?
We are definitely deeply leaned into the e-commerce world. And e-commerce is a very big statement. It involves creators and influencers, short form video, media buying. It's a all-encompassing world. Obviously, we're positioned at a segment of that with live streaming, which is typically the hardest part. So we're for us, it's going to be helping the brand step into that space, but also this ecosystem of other agency partners in e-commerce companies that don't have the live expertise. They need that. They
Mhm.
need like a backstop company or an expert that can come in and help them round it out. So that's a business we're anticipating high growth in both of those particular conversations. I think that's pretty critical. We're also looking at ways to drive more audience development. How can we bring more viewers to these experiences? So we've looked at, and we do have a way to, syndicate live video. Now we can drive it out across, maybe it's New York Times, CNN, Wall Street Journal, MSN. Yeah, I would have the video
Mhm.
as a media investment be across those platforms, but also index it to the audience that the customer wants to reach. Is it, people over the age of 25 who lean into tech, or maybe, we're working with somebody in the construction industry. So the big thing for us is tune in audience development. I think are going to be big differentiators for us, and then I think we're also interested in the merch business in the music industry,
Mm.
and I think that we can make a pretty big difference there because we do understand what happens at a live performance, and it's not just cameras, it's lighting and it's audio, and I think artists, merchandise is a big part of their income streams. In reality, they're only selling t-shirts when they're at these shows. Why not amplify these
Right.
experiences and say, hey, you at home, you're not at the show in Chicago, you're watching in New York, but you can buy some of the custom merch we've developed for this leg of the tour, or we're about to release a new record. I think it could be an interesting business that could happen at announcements, at events, at music festivals, at, maybe it's collaborations. Some of these artists too own their own product lines. Or Rihanna's got a
Mm.
extensive, beauty line. I think,
Yeah.
Diplo is into a fitness line. Um, there's great ways for them to integrate their products into these experiences, but also a lot of them are aligned with causes. So it's an interesting dynamic in that space. But those are the things I think that we're thinking about in terms of
Mhm.
commerce, audience development, music and merch, and it's never a dull moment. Put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. I definitely and I'm curious too, because like I can definitely see like, the concert's a great idea. You're right. They sell so much merchandise when they're there, but you're right. Like, in between, my brother's a huge music fan, so it's like every birthday, he's like, I want this music shirt and this music shirt.
Yeah.
He's kind of a rare bird. Otherwise, people are just buying at the shows. So I could see how that dynamic can really push people to connect with that at home, and that would come from a live event. When you think about the e-commerce, I'm curious to know how many people do you think will actually go in-house to do e-commerce versus having like you come in as either someone who helps them set up the in-house e-commerce, or if you think that's not going to happen at all and they'll just hire you instead. I remember in the photography world, like it was interesting to see they would still hire outside photographers for these internal catalogs and sometimes even online catalogs, even though I would think to myself, like, you could get this for a lot like cheaper if you had someone in-house, but they still did it. Do you think it's going to be the same with like the live streaming e-commerce dynamic that they'll come to outside sources versus trying to build it internally?
I think every business today has somebody on staff who is commerce dedicated. Some
Mhm.
companies have massive teams. I, I don't think that brands with products that are a little bit are priced higher, that are more complex. I don't think they're going to get into the live business themselves. I think they're going to look for someone to build them a studio, or maybe there's a studio they can go to and they can do a series of broadcasts, or it can be a pop-up experience. And they'll have, I guess, everything that we don't do, they'll probably have that figured out. They're probably going to know, hey, we've cut 5 deals with these 5 creators. They're all going to be in these 5 cities this in the month of March, and we want to amplify that work. They would probably need somebody like us to support them and to do that. I just saw a terrific video by the CMO of Crocs, and Crocs has been developing this Croctober. They go live every day on TikTok Shop, and I think they got 11 million views, sold all kinds of product, got killer, amazing feedback, and it really kind of transformed, their business. Majority of that they could probably manage themselves, but there's executing a live, if everybody could execute a live broadcast, they would. But the
Yeah.
reality is, even today, some of the TV broadcasters, they'll go and they'll have like the voice. If it's a live show, it's going to happen in a room in a studio that's equipped for live multi-broadcast. Like uh, we were years ago working with Jimmy Kimmel Live, right? That's a live experience. It's different than something that is pre-produced that comes out once a week. So I would expect everybody to be getting some in-house commerce capabilities. I think everybody's got a Shopify account, or they got a presence on Amazon. I think though that the and we're not there yet. I think it's in the super early days of e-commerce live video. But I think when that starts to propagate, that again, I use a brand like Bose or Apple, that has a
Mhm.
product that needs a little bit more depth to it. It needs 3 or 4 camera angles. It needs a comparison, a scroll that tells you the certain specifications. I think that's a science that they're going to look to, third parties to help them with.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. This has been really inspiring. I've had a lot of fun diving into all the details on just the live video experiences in your company and everything you created. So thank you so much for doing this with me today.
Oh, thanks. I certainly enjoyed the conversation. It also kind of reminds me of things I need to be thinking about, and how it is again, very dynamic, very changing world. I think,
Mhm.
certainly for everybody, but certainly in places like where tech and live and commerce meet, it's again, very, very dynamic time.
Yeah, it's really expanding. And where can people find you? Where can they check out your company, some of the things that you've created?
Definitely our website, Bulldog DM. That's Bulldog, D as in David, M as in Mary.com. We also have accounts for the business on Instagram and LinkedIn. I'm also have a presence on LinkedIn, but any one of those places, you can certainly get more info about us and what we're doing.
Awesome. Thank you again. And if you guys liked this, if you enjoyed it, please like the video. Please share it with someone who you think would be interested as well. And again, I really appreciate you coming, John. And thank you again. This was a really inspiring one.
Thank you, Carly. Appreciate it.